So,
Yeah. So I did one for a while, and it's fun. But yeah, it is work. That's for sure.
Well, welcome to the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. I am Joey Calvo. You heard our guest, Dr. Gary Sprouse, and we welcome him to YouTube and PhillyCAM TV.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on here. And I hope by the end of this hour that we help somebody have less stress today.
Yeah. I'm going to count myself out on that.
No, you can be the one person. I don't care who it is, right?
Oh, I'm being sarcastic. So explain how you became the less stressed doc.
Yeah, well, so I'm a primary care physician, and I was doing primary care for 38 years. And during the time as a primary care doctor, I would see people with high blood pressure and diabetes and arthritis. And what I was realizing was that the stresses in their life were contributing negatively to their health. And I was like, we got to do something about this because, like as an example, I had a patient who was working and his blood pressure was high. And so he had to take a bunch of medicine to get it under control. And then he retired. And all of a sudden his blood pressure got back to normal. He didn't need medicine anymore. You're like, whoa, wait a second here. So I realized as a primary care doctor, I need to start paying attention to the psychological aspects of my patients because they're just as important as the physical aspects. And so I started looking at going, well, where stresses come from? And this was the realization that I came to. As a doctor, I'm used to writing a prescription that says, hey, here's a medicine for your blood pressure. It works great. It might have some side effects. Mm-hmm. So my job is to make sure it gives the benefits and get rid of the side effects as much as possible. But when I turn that idea onto our skills as a human, here's what I came up with. So we have this amazing skill that we can envision a future. What? That's incredible. But it has a side effect. Now you got to worry about it. So my 2-year-old granddaughter, she doesn't have that skill yet. So she can't envision the future. So she literally can't worry. So she doesn't sit in her dad's lap going, Dad, how are we going to pay for college? Like as a 2-month-old, it doesn't come up because she doesn't have that skill. So she can't worry, but she doesn't have the skill to envision the future. So she's really vulnerable. So she needs her parents and her grandparents to keep track of her because she doesn't have that skill. Right. So what I came up with is this idea that, hey, we have all these incredible skills. They have side effects. How do we keep the skills and get rid of the side effects? And that's what led to this book.
Okay. And so you wrote the book. And so explain a little bit more about the book that I don't know about in reference to it.
So the book is called Highway to Your Happy Place, A Roadmap to Less Stress. And what I found was, like, I picked 6 stresses for this book. So the 6 stresses are worry and guilt and regret and boredom and low self-esteem and being overwhelmed. Because I felt like those were the 6 biggest stresses that are shared by most people. They have some form of those. And so I figured those are the first 6 we're going to tackle. Now, in my head, there's 5 more books that go, hey, this is Highway to Your Happy Place, mile marker 2. Right. And we go through 6 more stresses like grief and communication and divorce and things like that. So what I want to do is have a series of problems that humans have and deal with them. And here's the thing that I like the most about what I'm doing. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're a guy or a girl or a Korean or a Ukrainian. Every single human worries. What they worry about might be different, but they all worry. And so what it then becomes, what I'm doing then is the basis for where people get their stresses from. It's not just, oh, my spouse died and that's really stressful. You're like, well, what makes losing your spouse so stressful? And the answer is because you're worried and you feel guilty and you regret some things you did and you're a little bored now because you don't have anybody to go with. And you're like, your self-esteem takes a hit and you're overwhelmed because you got too much stuff on. I can't bring your spouse back, but I can do something about all those other stresses. And that's what I like so much about the work that I'm doing.
And just to let you know, your representative just emailed me to let me know you were on. I didn't get back to her yet. Okay.
All right, cool.
Yeah. She was like, he's on and ready. I was like, I'll email you later to let you know he's
Okay.
on.
I'll let her know real quick. I'm there.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Most of the stresses that you mentioned, I have.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're a human. You're a human being. Last time I checked, so why wouldn't you have those things?
Well,
you are a human being, right? You're not AI or something like that, right?
Oh no. No, I haven't gotten myself there yet. No, I usually tell people that I am fat, ugly, creepy, because of the low self-esteem,
Yeah,
the overweight, and there was a mistake in my past that I will never forgive myself for.
Well, then you need to read my book. Get my book, because you need to read it.
Yeah, and I have been told, in reference to, I mean, I've been forgiven, outside of it, but I will never feel it. And I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression in 2009. I've had low self-esteem for a long time because you must have messaged her because she just said, all good, I'm watching.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, in reference to the guilt, I will never forgive myself for what I did. I was cheated on. I've been hurt so many times that I literally will put that defense mechanism up saying that I'm fat, ugly, and creepy looking. And I have been told, literally, I was in Lake City one night, and what happened was I took a Greyhound bus drive because I don't drive anymore. I haven't driven 18 years.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, 18 years. So, I went down Greyhound wise, and the next bus going back was the next morning. So I was walking around the city and even to almost some of the quote unquote Badlands.
Gotcha. You're in Atlantic City, right?
I'm actually in Philly.
No. I mean, when you're
when this happened was in Atlantic City,
and
I was walking by, and this woman literally just said, "Creep," just called me a creep,
just right in front of my face.
Right in front of my face. And I was like, okay. And I was in the back of my mind, I should have said thank you very much, or I think I could have, because because of my mistake, that's how I look at myself as.
Oh, gotcha.
In reference to it. But
do you want to work on this?
What?
Do you want to work on this?
I've attempted to.
Well,
I've done the spiritual version of it even.
Okay. Well, let me tell you what comes out of my book. Maybe that, and you tell me whether it helps or not, right?
Okay.
So there's a couple things that you have to know about self-esteem. So first off, self-esteem starts when you're an infant. Like the first time you figure out that you're different than your parents is when your self-esteem starts, because for 6-8 months, you don't even realize you're different. Like you just think you're mom, right? So at that 6-8 month, year old, you start figuring out, hey, I'm different than my mom. And so that's when self-esteem starts.
Okay.
And the problem is self-esteem isn't just self. Like all the information you're getting about your self-esteem is coming from your parents, from your siblings, from your friends, from the internet, from TV, and all that information is coming in, and you're now making the assessment as a 1-year-old, hey, am I a good person or not?
Well, actually, in reference to that, it was kind of like kindergarten in reference to when it started.
Yeah.
But mainly what I was told I was picked on for more was the clothes, because everybody went to JCPenney and Macy's, and I went to Kmart.
Yeah, okay.
Now these days is if you're like Walmart and Target, you're okay. Or actually now I think it's now more Amazon. In reference to if you got your clothes at Amazon, then you're up there. But they may still say, "Oh yeah, I got my clothes at Macy's, at Nordstrom's." But if you got your clothes at Walmart or Target or even a thrift store, you're nothing.
All right. Well, let me continue now. So now you've started establishing what your self-esteem is, and self-esteem is actually 3 parts. Mm-hmm. The first part is answering the question, "Am I a good person?" And that's self-worth. The second part is self-respect, and that's answering the question, "Am I doing things the right way?" Mm-hmm. And then the third one is, "How will I do with a future challenge?" And that is called self-efficacy, or I like to just use the word confidence, right? So if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, put on a podcast," how confident are you that you'd be able to do that, right? Yeah. So those are the 3 parts of self-esteem.
Yeah.
What I find is that because self-esteem started early, it gets stuck in there. Mm-hmm. And so most people aren't willing to recalibrate and go through the process of figuring out, hey, how do I answer those 3 questions? Yeah. So when you talk about self-worth, I have 2 tools that I use. One is called the achievement calculator. Mm-hmm. So the achievement calculator is for everything that I do that I achieve successfully, I get 10 points. And for everything that doesn't go well, I get -10. But here's the problem. Most people give themselves 0 or 1 if they accomplish something, and give themselves -20 if something doesn't go right. Well, those are hard ratios to keep up. So if you gave yourself 10 points for everything that went well, and -10 for things that didn't, there's no way that you wouldn't be positive. So here's the tool: 50-point wake up. So when I wake up in the morning, I get 50 points.
Okay.
10 points because I'm still alive. Yay.
Yeah. All
10
right,
points because I got water.
I'm up to 60. All right, I'm at a failing grade right now. Then
you got it. 10 points because I got food. 10 points because I live in a safe house. And here's my final 10 points. I have indoor toilets. What? How nice is that?
Okay. All right.
I wake up and I get 50 points. I didn't even get out of bed yet. So if something didn't go right and I lose 10, that's all right. I'm still a +40. So there's no way. If your achievement calculator is keeping track of all the things you achieve and it's doing it accurately, there's no way that you don't have positive on that meter. And the second meter is the same. It kind of goes to what you're saying, is what I call the trait meter.
Yeah.
Same idea. So people have traits. So you just said, I'm fat and I'm ugly and I'm creepy. All right. Well, those are 3 traits and they're not real positive. But you're also a really fun guy to be around, and you're very talkative, and you listen well, and blah, blah, blah. So you work hard and you do like you have all these positive traits that you're ignoring. So don't ignore them. If you gave 10 points to all your good traits.
Actually, and I'm sorry to cut you off on that, but believe it or not, there is someone that does remind me of that. And you will find that out in a little bit in reference.
So when you do your trait meter and you do it accurately, even if you have some negatives, right? So like I would bet that you have 10 positives, and what you've told me is you have 3 negatives. And here's the cool thing. Yes. You can do something about the negatives if you choose to. That's under your control. You get to say, hey, I don't want to be fat anymore, blah, 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 whatever it is that you want to do. So but if you have 10 good things and only 3 negative things, you're still positive territory.
We're in reference to one of the traits, we are actually working on it. And that's it's just hard to lose weight right now. That's
hard to lose weight because there's way too much food around us.
Yeah. And mainly because in reference to it, I don't have a kitchen. Like I live in like a rooming house.
Okay.
In reference to it. Okay. So that's been my downfall. So we are starting to work on getting a place with a kitchen to where I can make a salad and stuff like that.
There you go. You're just changing so what I tell people is you're not happy with the outcome you're getting, but the only way to get a different outcome is to change the input. So you're telling me you're getting ready to change the input and you'll get a different outcome. Good for you. And there's 2 things that I want to tell you that will make all the difference. So I just told you about these meters and all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But here's the 2 things that are the most important. Right. So what humans do is they have this image of themselves. So what you've told me is that you have this image of you as low self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone comes along and says, hey, you're a really nice guy, Joey, and you're like, wait, that doesn't fit. That doesn't make sense. That causes
well, before you go any further on it, my version is, what planet are you from?
That's it. That's what I'm talking, right?
Yeah. When people say that, I'm like, what planet are you from?
Right. This is what I call the 4 Ds. So it's dismissal and denial and distraction and diminishing. And so what happens then is you take that information that comes in and says you're good and you get rid of it. So you tend to ignore it. But if somebody comes along on the street of Atlantic City and says you're a creep, you go, I don't like hearing that, but yeah, they found out, right? And so then you accept that. Mm-hmm. And so then how do you change self-esteem when you're ignoring all the things that say you're a good guy and magnifying all the things that say you're a bad guy? So what I tell people is when you find yourself doing just what you said, what planet are you from? Going, whoa, wait a second. That's my 4 Ds acting up. Get out of the way. I don't need the 4 Ds. If someone's telling me I'm a good person, probably a good person, right?
Yeah. Well, like I said, in reference to that, there is someone that reminds me that. And I literally get to the point, and I'm literally saying this. Matter of fact, I just did a quote unquote special podcast the other day about it, that I literally push people away. Like you said, I literally just pushed everybody away. I said, I don't believe in friends. And then I explained what a friend is supposed to be, and what my calibration of a friend is supposed to be. And I literally just said to those that, I made the exception to those who've been supporting me in a way. I kind of said, okay, you're exempt from this, but to the others, I was like, you're not my friend, because if you were my friend,
I know, but that's because you're vulnerable. Yeah, you are vulnerable because you don't think that much of yourself. So you're vulnerable. So if somebody says something mean to you, that hurts a lot. And 2 is you don't feel worthy of having friends because you're not that, in your head, you're not that great a person. But I'm here to tell you that if you looked at this objectively, you have a whole bunch of good traits. You have a whole bunch of achievements. You're doing things the right way. And it's like, and you have confidence or you wouldn't be on the air. So you should have good self-esteem. But what you're going to have to do is change that picture that you have in your head. And here's the good news. If you start changing, and so when someone comes along and says, hey, you're a good guy, and you say, you know what, you're right, I am a good guy, then guess what happens? The 4 Ds work in your favor. So then when someone says you're a good guy, you're like, yeah, that's what I thought, because now that fits with my internal image. And if somebody comes along and says you're a creep, you're like, wait, that doesn't fit. Now, what planet are you from? Yeah. Then that's how. So it works the other way too. Yeah. And here's the last thing, and particularly for that lady from Atlantic City, here's what I would say to you. Yeah. The other meter that we have in our head is a credibility meter. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is we give people way too much credibility. Mm-hmm. So when she came along and said you're a creep, you're like, you should be saying, hey, my credibility meter, my meter says I'm not a creep. I don't know who you are, but you have no credibility in my world. So I went through this with my ex-wife. She would say, you're a bastard and you're an angry person and you're bipolar and blah, blah, blah. And here's what I would say to her. Well, for you, your credibility to me is you're a 2-year-old. Like if a 2-year-old came up to me and said, you're an angry person, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. You're 2 years old. What do you know? So I would look at my ex-wife and go, well, in my mind, you're a 2-year-old. So you have no credibility with me. So whatever it is you're saying doesn't hurt because you don't have any credibility. You're a freaking 2-year-old. What do I care, right? So it's like
here's the interesting thing, okay? In reference to my ex-wife, she actually, when she met me, she was cheating on somebody else with me.
Yeah, I hear
that. And then cheated on me with others. Yeah, in reference to it. And then because of that is when I realized that I felt unloved at that point.
Absolutely.
I was like,
well, okay, if somebody had low self-esteem and that happened to him, yeah, that'd be like dramatic proof that, yep, you're right. I'm not the best person.
And it was every relationship I had. They wind up cheating on me. They wouldn't tell me why until my ex-wife was like, I would like a separation. Well, it's kind of hard when you controlled the money and you reminded me that what's mine is yours and what yours is yours. So you're telling me to separate when I have nothing to go to because you took it away. I didn't say it back then. And it's like now 18 years after the fact, it's coming into my head on that I should have said that, you know, but I kind of did say, where do you want me to go? I can't go anywhere because, you know.
Well, I mean, usually when that happens, there's something missing in the relationship. Did she tell you what was missing?
No, because she did this before. Because, and believe it or not, it was her friend and her cousin that told me that she was doing this.
Gotcha. Well, you know, there are people that get in relationships, and here, one of the things that I find is that when you're dating, the thresholds are different. So when you're dating, you're willing to do this and willing to do that. But then when you get married, the roles change.
Yeah.
And your identity changes. So you go from being a boyfriend or a girlfriend to now you're a husband or a wife.
Right.
Those are very different rules and different roles. And so all of a sudden, things that were okay when you're dating now aren't okay. So I see this, like I've seen this with couples. It's like they've met a guy and they really like him. He's really nice. He's charming, blah, blah, blah. He's making money, he shaves, right? Like that puts him in the 95th percentile. But he doesn't like to dance. And they're like, well, no big deal. I can deal with not dancing. It's all right because all these other things are good. Then they get married, and now it's 5 years later and it's 10 years later, and they can't get the guy out on the dance floor, and they're missing that. And so all of a sudden it becomes a big deal. And so they're like, oh, I didn't realize dancing was so important to me. And it's like now they're stuck because now they're married, right? So that's where people can get into trouble. But I will say to you this, and this is critical.
Yes.
That we are hardwired to interact with other humans.
Yes.
The biggest joy we can have is interacting with other humans, whether it's our kid, whether it's our friend, whether it's our spouse, whether it's our family, whoever it is. We are hardwired in our brain to want to interact with people. But here's the problem. Humans are the most dangerous thing in our environment.
Okay.
Like, when's the last time you got attacked by a lion? When's the last time you got bitten by a snake? Never, right? When's the last time somebody broke your heart? When's the last time someone stole your money, right? So humans are the most dangerous thing in our environment by far, and yet we're hardwired to want to be with them. And it's like it makes us a little ambivalent about every relationship. And if you end up starting out with, well, I'm not the greatest person, that makes it even worse.
Believe it or not, I've been saying that to two people right now who have been really the most important. And just like you're saying to me about, you know, how I should be looking at my life and all that, these two remind me of that.
Good for them.
They
are you listening to them? That's the key. You have to listen to them. You have to believe them. You don't have, because what I'm worried is there's these two people in your life telling you're a good guy and you're going, hey, what planet are you from? Like, no, you have to listen to them. They're telling you the truth.
But here's the thing.
I don't even know you that well, and I think you're a good guy.
But here's the thing, though, is to them, when I see them per se, it's like I want to put them up on a pedestal, worship them, and literally just tell them how amazing they are.
And do that.
And just like
tell them you appreciate them.
I do.
Yeah,
I do say that. I do say that.
I'm sure you do.
But in reference to them saying it to me, I'm like, sometimes I even question. I'm like, why are you still interested in me if I'm being this to you? If I'm disrespecting you or you know, pushing you away in reference to you telling me that I'm good looking or you think I'm sexy or you think that I'm just, you know, good. Why do you still
stop trying to diminish and deflect and deny, like go, oh, you like me. Isn't that nice? Because you have a lot of good things going on. you're a good guy. Like there's other guys out there that are not as good as you. So good for you, right?
Yeah.
So do you have a couple things that you could be better at? Yeah, sure. So what? Like we all have things that we could better at. My handwriting sucks. Could I get better handwriting? I could if I wanted to work at it, right?
Yeah.
But like, I was overweight and for a while, and my wife and I both said, you know what, we're gonna do something. We changed the input. Now it's 3.5 years ago. We lost 35 pounds and we've kept it off. And it's like we just went on a long trip and we didn't follow our diet. And so we gained some weight. So literally both said in the airport when we got back, okay, time to get back on the diet so that we can get back. And that's what we did. So all it takes is changing the input. When you see things that aren't good, you have the skills and the power and the ability to change those things. And then guess what? Then you'll have more self-respect because if you lost some weight, even if it was 10 or 20 pounds, you would feel better about yourself because it would be achievement and you would go, oh, check me out, right?
Don't get me wrong. I mean, when I lost weight, I was like, okay, we're getting there. And then all of a sudden, soon as something negative came, I was like, and just said, back to what we were doing.
Well, so okay,
and that's why I put up that wall around.
Yeah. Okay. So the wall is up there to protect yourself. You're trying to protect yourself from getting hurt. So you push people away because you're afraid, understandably, that people are going to hurt you. So you put up this wall and push them away, going like, "Yeah, I don't want you to hurt me." But if you felt good about yourself and you felt worthy, then you wouldn't need the wall and if you gave yourself more credibility than the people around you, then you wouldn't be so vulnerable. And then you'd let more people in, and then more people would get to see what a nice guy you are.
And that's the thing. The two people that I'm talking about in reference to that have not given up on me. They have not,
because they see what a nice guy you are.
There's one that I want to see so badly, just so I can literally just thank them.
People like feeling appreciated. And what I'm hearing from you is you appreciate these people in your life. And you tell them that, I'm telling you now that appreciation was the currency that humans used before money was invented. So they would say, oh, thanks for finding that extra fish. Oh, here's a berry for you, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, thanks for rubbing my back, right? Appreciation was around way before money came around. And that is the currency. And we all still want appreciation. It's why we have Mother's Day and Father's Day and birthday. We like appreciation. And so when people don't feel appreciated, that's not a good thing, right? When they're appreciation deficient, it's not good. So, yes, you're doing exactly what you should be doing. Thank you so much. I appreciate that you're here for me, and I feel safe with you. That's really important to me, so thank you.
But the thing is, I can appreciate them, not me. I couldn't.
Okay, so
like I said,
so now we got to get on to the next topic of guilt, okay? Yeah. So if I said to you, tell me what guilt is, what would you say?
Guilt is things that are over your head that you think you can control, but you really can't. That you see in front of your face. You want to wring it out, but you can't because it's tougher than you think.
Okay. Well, I'm going to simplify that. So here's my definition of guilt. Okay. Guilt is you did something wrong. And guilt is the punishment for doing something wrong. You broke a rule. The rule can be written like a law, or it could be unwritten, like some social mores, like, you picked your nose at dinner, right? Whatever, right? So guilt is a tool that society uses to keep us in line.
Yeah.
So when somebody has, like, you've seen some mother that killed her baby when she was freaking out. And she's in the courtroom and she's sobbing and she's falling on the ground. It's like, oh my God, I don't know what I was doing. It was crazy. I was out of my mind. Blah, blah, blah. And we go, okay, we're going to punish you with guilt and put you in jail for a little while. But we get it, right? You understand. You shouldn't have done that. The person that freaks us out is the guy who's in the courtroom going, yeah, I murdered 10 people, whatever. Like we go, oh, what do you mean, whatever? Wait, no, we don't like that at all, because guilt is the tool that society uses to change our behavior and mold us so that we can live in a group together. Okay.
Yeah.
So if that is the goal of guilt and you did something wrong, then what guilt's telling you to do is change your behavior. So I'm going to guess whatever it is that you did in the past, which first off, you can't change because it's in the past.
Right.
What you can change is what you do in the future. So as long as you don't do that again,
right. Oh,
guilt did what it was supposed to do, and you changed your behavior. Yay! So
yeah.
then I don't need guilt anymore. It did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah. I mean, I went through the therapy and stuff that was required in reference to it.
Sure.
But the guilt that I still have is it's going to still be on me the rest of my life. That's the thing.
So let's finish up, right? So now, so the first thing is it's in the past and you can't change it. What you can change is your future behavior, which you already have. If you ever did whatever that was again, feel guilty again. But you've changed your behavior, so guilt did what it was supposed to. So you don't need to feel it as much. 2, then you have to learn how to forgive yourself. And the question is, how do you do that, right? So I was just talking about
that. I mean, I've had, and I picked, and like I've said on other podcasts, I literally wind up just picking brains by the time I'm doing this, you know, in reference to what I'm saying, because, and you know, I'm going to be very honest in reference to it, and I should be apologizing to most of the guests in reference to it. I'll listen to what you're saying. I'll attempt to do it. And then I'll find something and I'm like, nope. And I'll just stop right there and give up right there.
You watch this episode over and over and over again, and you'll get past that, right? All right. So here's how you forgive yourself. This came from a book from Desmond Tutu. So here's the deal. First off, don't keep a secret, because when people keep secrets, it takes a lot of energy to keep that secret. So in my office, people would come in as a doctor. They felt comfortable because they found somebody, and you have 2 people in your life that you're telling me about that are empathetic and non-judgmental. So patients would come into me and they would feel that safe security and safety with me. And so then they would start telling me the story about something that was horrendous in their life, right? And they hadn't told anybody else, but they were telling me because they felt safe.
They felt trust in me.
Yes. And when they got done.
And you know what? And you know what? You're right. You're absolutely right on that. Because these people that I've been talking about that have been, they've literally been, it feels like they've been my rock.
Yeah, they are your rock.
And the one
they're your safe place.
Yeah. And one in particular, we discussed a lot, and just literally opened up to me, and I didn't think it was going to happen, but as they opened up to me, I was like, you know what? I'm really liking her.
Good.
Because she trusts me.
Mm-hmm.
She sees the mistake that I made, because she made her own mistake in the past as well. So it's not as deafening as mine, but we were in the same position.
Yeah, you're kindred spirits. You have empathy for each other because you know where you've both been. You've been in the same place.
And what's even more surprising is this. I said to you, I went on a spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And here's where the spiritual journey has been taking me. Yes, God's calling me to do this podcast. That was the first thing.
Okay.
The second thing is the person that opened up to me is in that door. And
so Buddhists say, when the student is ready, a teacher will show up. And what I find is when you're ready for something to happen, the environment sets up some situation where all of a sudden, like, oh, now I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
some person shows up in your life, some book shows up in your life, some podcast shows up in your life. You're like, the light goes on. You're like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I first did this podcast in 2019, I just literally was just doing it to make a little extra money at the time. I didn't think. Now, like I said, I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression in 2009. And I went to the psychiatrist and the psychologist and stuff. Okay. Psychologists, all they kept saying to me is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, if they're saying, what am I going to do? Why am I coming to you?
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't make any sense to me.
And that's all that ever happened. They never said, okay, let's look at this and try this.
Yeah.
They just said, what are you going to do? How are you going to look at it?
Well, I will say this is interesting, right? Because as a doctor, as a primary care doctor, I'm used to people coming in going, hey, you got high blood pressure, do this. As a psychologist, you're actually trained to sit back and let people figure it out on their own. But I'm like, you've been trained for 20 years on how to do this. Why would you think somebody who hasn't figured it out yet is now going to figure it out? Like, so I'm much more practical and much more objective and going, okay, here's the problem, do this, right? And I think from my patients, they appreciated it. I've had patients come to me and go, I got more out of 15 minutes with you than 2 years of counseling.
Oh, wait a minute. But wait till you hear this. So I go to the psychiatrist, and I mentioned that I do this podcast and stuff. You know what the psychiatrist said? Your podcast is your medicine.
Oh, yeah.
And wait a minute. First question that came out of my head was, what planet are you from? I was like, what? But as time went on, he was right.
No, yeah, I would guess.
Right. I was like, okay.
This is your talk therapy.
This is my, And then, I had my ups and downs and the negatives and, things falling apart. And I always wind up saying, anytime something good has happened to me, something bad's going to happen that's going to knock it right out of the ballpark and put me right back to where I'm at. And things did happen in reference to it. And, it's a rebuilding stage right now. But at the same time, they're still there.
Yeah. Well, here's another thing.
It may be in a different fragment of mind.
Yeah.
But they're still there.
This is critical. So there's another book that I got involved with called Mindset Matters.
Yeah.
And part of the problem you're running into is your mindset isn't where it needs to be, because as you process the information, your mindset is affecting how you see it. So in your mindset, you need to switch to what they call a growth mindset and from a victim mindset to a creator mindset. You are a creator, right? You are creating a podcast. You are creating information for people to digest so they can have a better life. You are a creator. You're not a victim, right? But the growth mindset is, hey, I'm doing something new and it's going to take some time to figure it out. And I might not be great at the beginning, but I'm going to get better and better. And if there's a setback, if something doesn't go well, that's all right. It's not it's a destruction to my self-esteem. It's a learning opportunity. And so I'm going to get better from that. So my wife and I did literally the thing that I did before I got on this podcast was we were doing a ballroom dancing. Okay. Like I've never done that before. I like to dance, but I've never done ballroom dancing.
I'm not a dancer. No matter what.
We did tangos and we're doing waltzes and I'm like, and we're stumbling on each other. We're kicking each other in our shins. But it's like, you know what? We're going to get better at this and we're just going to practice until we get good at it. And I know my self-efficacy, my confidence is I'm going to have some setbacks and some frustrations, but I'm going to keep working and I'm going to get better. So if something didn't go right, it's okay because I'm going to get better from it and I'm going to learn. Don't do that again. Do something different next time.
Well, let's get to these questions very quickly before we run out of time. So
why is Wonder Woman on my screen?
That's not Wonder Woman. Her name is American Fox. She looks like Wonder Woman, but she's not.
Does.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to insult you by calling her Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Oh, she's used to hearing it. I'll say that. Okay. But she is the podcast #1 fan. number one supporter.
Good.
And I mentioned The Rock in reference to the podcast part.
Okay.
And she has questions for you.
Excellent.
So the first question that she has for you that was sent to you originally was, how did you overcome your own personal stress?
Yeah, well, okay. So in my world, so when I first started, I'm in a rural area, and so I would have patients come to me with chronic pain, and they were miserable, and there wasn't any such thing as a pain management specialist in those days. So I started taking care of patients with pain management, and the medical hierarchy was telling us, hey, you're under treating pain, so be more aggressive. So I was more aggressive. And then the pendulum switched. And so then the pendulum went, oh, now you're over treating people and you're making them addicts and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, wait, what? So the things I was doing, I was getting patted on the back for, now I'm getting in trouble. And so that created a lot of stress because my board was going, hey, we're going to take your license away. And you're like, wait, what? What am I supposed to do with myself? I don't have a medical at what? So this was this 20-year struggle. So it created a crazy amount of stress in my life. But because this is interesting, right? My mindset, as I said, is a growth mindset. So I'm going, wait, I'm not a victim here. I'm a creator. So what's going on? Why are you doing this to me? What did I do different that I'm doing the same things I did when you were patting me on the back. Now I'm getting yelled at. So I said, wait, I used my 4Ds and said, wait, you guys have a different agenda. Plus, you're not doing it right. But it made me go back and say, what is it that I really want to be as a doctor? What kind of ethics do I want to have as a doctor? How can I get better information on how to treat people with chronic pain? How can I get better given the information? And here's the other thing. I go, you know what? If there's a thing I have called a worry organizer, and the last column of that worry organizer, what do I do if the worst happens? And so you start planning, but without fear. So I go, okay, if the board took my license away, what would I do? And the answer was, whoa, I got to find a new identity.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not a doctor, what am I? So then I go, oh, I'm going to be an author. Oh, I'm going to be a real estate investor. Oh, I'm going to be a karaoke singer. Oh, I'm going to be So now I started developing other identities so that if something happened to my one identity, I still had other ones. Second is I go, oh, well, I'm not going to be able to earn the kind of money I am as a doctor. What am I going to do? I became a real estate investor. I started taking jobs because I still had my license. I never lost the license, first off. But I started taking jobs that I would have never taken before because it gave me an opportunity to make money. So what happened was when the pandemic hit, I'm doing a lot of nursing home work. And all of a sudden, my primary care doctors who were seeing patients in the office couldn't see them in the office. They weren't allowed in. But at the nursing home, we were told you have to see these patients every day because they're vulnerable. So all of a sudden, I made extra money. So now, because of my attitude to that stress, I said, I'm going to take this and not see myself as a victim, but see myself as a creator. And I'm going to figure out a way to get around all these problems. It made me a better doctor. And it made me have more money, which then allowed me to be more, it gave me resilience and it gave me reserve. And so then I could handle. So then if somebody came to me and said, we're going to take your license away. And you're like, well, fine. And like, I'm going to be retiring in a year. So whatever, right? I don't need my license anymore. Right. So those are the things that I did that got me through that period. And that's only with the board, right? So as a doctor, and this is the other thing is most guys in general, and some women, but mostly guys, they diminish the stresses to the point where they don't pay attention to them, right? We call it denial. So I would diminish things. But as a doctor, you're like, every time you see a patient, you could do something wrong and somebody could lose their life. Or something could go wrong and you get sued and it's $1 million suit. Right. Or you do something and the board comes down and yells at you, right? So you get every single patient could be that. So somewhere along the line, you have to kind of minimize them to a certain extent so you can go into the room the next patient and say, okay, what can I do for you today? So those are the things that I would do. Then I also worked on this thing where, so sometimes people get overwhelmed, and it sounds like you got into that position a couple of times. So when people get overwhelmed, they got too much stuff on their plate. They're like, I don't know what to do with all this stuff, right? So one of the things that I had to work on is what I call an empathy wall. So I was just talking with another patient today, another client. The empathy wall is this wall that I built around myself that protects me from all the stresses and strains from all the patients that are coming in to see me. But here's the key. The wall has to be thick enough that it protects me, but it has to be thin enough that I can still be empathetic with them. because I don't want to be that cold, aloof doctor that goes, whatever, you got cancer, I'll see you next week. No, that's not who I am, right?
Right.
So in that wall are 2 bricks that I talk about. One is stresses. So my stresses, they max out at a 10. That's my effort. My stresses, I max out at 10. Right. Everybody else's stresses, they max out at 5. They're not a 0, so I'm paying attention to you. I'm listening to you. I'm doing what I can to help you. But your stresses are your stresses, and they're a 5 to me. Okay. And so when you do that, all of a sudden, half your stresses go away. So I said this to one of my clients because she was freaking out that her son wasn't doing well. Mm-hmm. And so when I gave her that advice, she was like, wait, you're right. That's his problem. Like, I can help him. I can do this. I can do that. But I can't fix him. Right? They're his stresses. And that's the second one is I can't fix anybody. The best that I can do is give them advice and get good at giving the advice.
Right.
So my metric for success is not, did you get better? My metric for success is, did I give you really good advice? And did I get good at giving it to you? Now, if you get better, whoa, that's even better, right? That's icing on the cake. But my metric of success is I gave you really good advice and I helped you with your life as long as you were willing to do it.
Yeah. I to be very quickly, because we have like 5 other questions we gotta get within 10 minutes at least in reference to this. In reference to the one of the rocks, quote unquote, that we're talking about, in reference to literally just believes in me. And that's what the hardest thing has been, is no one has ever said that they believe. I mean, I've had people, well, the 2 in particular are interested in me. They do believe that I could make something of myself, but one literally said, I believe in you. I know you can do this.
You are,
and I think that's what the hardest thing it was to me as well, was someone saying, you got this, when in my like we were talking before, I really don't. I don't believe I have it. I don't believe I can do this.
Okay, so here's your problem. Your credibility meter, you're giving everybody else in your life credibility way more than your own credibility.
Right.
You need to shift that around. You're a really credible person. You know you're doing a good job. It's not a question, can I do this? You are doing it. You've been running a podcast for 7 years. I did it for 7 months, and it was like, okay, I got to do something else. You've been doing this for 7 years. Like you already, it's not up for debate. You already are doing it. I don't have to can I do it? It's not a question of can I. You are. So give yourself credit for it.
Well, I was about to give up on it. Plus, I've mentioned it on this podcast. I've given myself 2 suicide attempts as well. But mainly they were about money-wise. They weren't about, the second one.
There's a big stress in your life. Trust me, there isn't a single person that lives on this planet that hasn't somewhere in their life said, you know what, life sucks and it's never going to get better. I should just end it. Everybody has said that somewhere along the line. For some people, it's a 1-second thought. For other people, actually try and do it. Some people actually do it and they're successful, right? It is a stress-reducing technique. The problem is the side effects are horrendous.
Right.
Like you're dead. Like it's not a good stress-reducing technique in that you're dead. And worse, everybody around you freaks out.
Yeah.
And they regret and feel guilt. And they're like, what could I have done differently? I didn't see this kind of for generations.
Right.
So it's not a good technique, but you are not alone. You're not the first person. I was just on a podcast where they talked about suicide. So there's I forget what the number was, like 55,000 suicides a year. But there's literally millions of people who think about it.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, it's billions that think about it. They just don't think about it for very long, so they don't show up in the statistics. So do not beat yourself up that you thought about it. It's just, that's what we do, right? What I want you to do, though, is figure out other ways that work that work better than that.
But what happened was I had voices in my head that said, we would miss you if you were gone.
Yeah, good.
And then on top of it, with the second one, in this, because if you come to Philadelphia, you go to Penn's Landing, there's this wall, and this guy like lunged across the top of the wall to the edge, and I thought the guy was gonna fall in, and I looked, I took one look, and I said,
Yeah.
like, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And that's when I had to sit down, like, okay, what do you want me to do? You know?
There you go. Like, I had a patient, he had a gun in his mouth, and he stopped for a second. He's like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why don't I just change? And they took the gun out of his mouth, and then the rest of his life was good.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to the
other question you got.
Yeah. Oh, I jumped too far ahead here. Here we go. Question number 2. What made you collaborate to write a book?
Oh, so my first book I did on my own, and I wrote it. Well, not I say on my own. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I wrote it, but then I had editors, and I had a focus group that helped me figure out what was good and bad, blah blah. So there was a whole bunch of people involved. I did write a book called I was involved with a book called Mindset Matters with Jack Canfield, who's a pretty well-known guy. He wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. And so what I wanted to do is get involved with him, because I think mindset does matter, number one. And number two, I wanted to be involved with another author to say, hey, how does this work? And that book became a #1 bestseller, which then means I'm a #1 bestseller. So that was the reason I got involved in those books.
Right. Okay. Question number 3 from American Fox. Did you feel limitations on being a physician?
Yeah, absolutely. So what happens is, when I first started, which is 40 years ago, you were a primary care doctor, you were independent business person, but nowadays you got insurance companies telling you what to do. You got the government telling you what to do. You got administrators telling you what to do. You got bosses telling you what to do. You got patients, you got boards. All these people are telling you what to do. The problem is they're telling you what to do, but if something doesn't go right, you're the one that gets held responsible. So it causes big problems.
Yeah.
And I find with a lot of young doctors is they're busy typing their information into the computer. So they're paying attention to the computer. The patient's sitting over there. Like, hello, look at me.
Right.
I will tell you, I was just in the doctor's myself, and I had some belly pain. And the doctor was talking to me eye to eye, and I'm like, oh, this is great. He goes, yeah, I'm just letting you know that AI, this is where AI can help. AI is taking notes and writing my note for me. So when I can talk with you and then pay attention to you, and I was like, oh, yeah, now this is where technology can help.
Yeah. And in reference to that, I had so-called friends and classmates that were telling me, this is what you need to do. This is what you have to do. Well, why can't I tell myself what to do? And that's another thing that was in my negativity.
Well, yeah, but that's because you think they have more credibility. Like what I got, people will tell me, like I had 100 different opinions of what they thought I should write in the book.
Yeah.
And what I would say to them is like, thank you for your input. Appreciate it. Really nice that you spent the time and effort and you thought enough of it to give me that input. And I'm going to take that into consideration and then me decide what I'm going to do.
Right. Well, we got 6 minutes, so we got to make these quick.
Okay.
So 4th question from American Fox is, what are the highest stress factors?
So here's what I find. Like most of the books that have been written about stress talk about top 10 stresses, losing a spouse, losing a job, blah, blah, blah. What I find is all those stresses, when you say what makes losing, like when I got divorced, theoretically that was really stressful. No, that reduced a lot of my stresses. So what makes divorce so stressful, what makes death so stressful is the guilt and the regret and the overwhelmed and the this and the that. Those are things I can do something about. And the second is this is where mindset really matters, right? Because when you see things like I'm in trouble with my board, like I could see that as horribly stressful and just quit. No, I just saw that as an opportunity to learn and grow.
Okay. And be quick. My divorce was like, I'm glad it happened.
Exactly.
That was it.
Reduced your stress, probably.
Yeah, it did a little bit. What is the greatest achievement, greatest accomplishment you had?
Yeeks. Well, okay. I'm going to say that, I mean, beyond having kids, which was awesome, right? When I was in high school, and I came from a family from Philly, right? And nobody in my family had ever gone to college. Yeah. Nobody had gone anywhere, right? So I ended up getting into college and then in college, I had to work really hard to get through college.
Yeah.
And so college was difficult for me, to say the least.
Yeah.
And so when I had applied to 10 medical schools, 9 of them had said, yeah, no, you don't even get close to meeting our criteria.
Right.
And I was sitting there going, oh my God, I'm a senior in college. I have literally no backup plan. If I don't get into medical school, I have no idea what I'm going to do with myself. Literally no idea.
Right.
And then I got a letter and said, you're in medical school.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that letter changed my life, because now I got into medical school. So medical school, I had a scholarship from the government. So medical school, even though it was hard, for me, it was easy because all I had to do was study. This is easy stuff. And that changed my life, because what I realized, I'd always wanted to be a doctor. Not sure why, but I did. And then as I became a doctor, it was the right decision. So getting into medical school put me on a path that gave me fulfillment and purpose in my life.
Which actually leads to this question.
Okay.
Question number 6 from American Fox. What made you choose this profession?
Okay, so here's what I've learned over the time, now that I've had a chance to explore. So what it turns out is I really get enjoyment from helping people feel better. So when I was a doctor, my job was to help you in some way. So that might be saying, hey, you got blood pressure and I want you to live longer, so take this medicine. Or it might be you have cancer and you're not going to live too much longer, but I'm here to make you as comfortable as I can make you with this idea. And I'm going to help your family, help you, blah, blah. But everywhere I went, my goal was to make your life better. And so when I retired, they're like, what am I going to do myself now? Well, guess what? I already had the answer. It's the same answer. I'm here to make people feel better, except now the tools are different. Before it was a prescription pad and a stethoscope, and now it's a book and a podcast. So it's like same thing. That's why I chose it. And I will say that I have not regretted a single moment in my life, because I will tell you that I've touched a lot of people's lives.
I will say, if it wasn't for American Fox, this podcast really wouldn't have continued.
Well, hey,
because
we all have reasons why things go on.
Yeah.
I've had these dark days where I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm retired. Like, no. And then somebody comes along and says, Dr. Sprouse, I listened to you and I got better because of you. And I'm like, oh, that's why I'm doing this.
Yep. So we have a minute left. How can people reach out to you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's called thelessstressdoc.com. And on that website is other information like my worry organizer. There's a chapter from the book called about worry that you can just download for free. And then there's an online course that's on there that gives you 15-minute audio bites of the book so that you can process it when you're commuting or whatever. And then they can go on Barnes & Noble or Amazon, and there's a hardback and a softback and an audio book that I did myself. So that's all on there. And then here's what I found as an author. You're writing a book, but you don't know who's on the other side of the book.
Right.
So if you need personal information, just email me at lessstressdoc@gmail.com, and then I can personalize the information in that book to you.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to put the email on because we don't have much more time, but you're welcome to come back on this podcast anytime. We can, if you want to do a webinar type podcast on the different stresses and stuff, those 6 that that you were mentioning to me that we were talking about in the beginning, that and
here's the new avenue that I've had. So you were talking about when you felt bad, you started eating, right?
Yeah.
And so what I call that is you were doing food as a stress reducer. And one of the things that I'm learning is instead of calling people they're addicts and they're diseased and they're broken and they're bad and they're dirty, blah, 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 I've come up with this new model called the stress reducer loop model. And what it says is you have stress, you found something to reduce your stress, but that thing that you do, that stress reducer, is now causing stress. That puts you in a loop. So the more stress, the more you do it, the more you do it, the more stress. And so I'm developing this I'm developing this program we called Loop Breakers to help people get out of that loop. Okay.
And please come back when that, when you make that full effect, because, like I said, we can make a podcast off of it.
I'd love that. It would be
awesome. Just let me know in reference to it. And thank you everybody for watching the Life with Joey Calvo podcast on YouTube and on PhillyCAM TV. God bless you all.